We're excited to have you join us for Conversations with WINENJIRU. I'm so happy to have my dear friend Diane Chimboza of Under the Influence East Africa as our guest today. Welcome, Diane, and thank you so much for this time we have with you.
Great, wonderful to see you again, WINENJIRU.
And you're looking lovely.
Oh, thank you so much. I bought red wine.
Oh, you know what? Red wine flows through my veins. Yeah. So take us back to how you got into this wine space, or actually, before you were in the wine space. What was Diane like then?
I was very good at drinking wine. I didn't know anything else but to drink wine. But I think my love for wine came from my father. Very big wine lover. He went into retirement around 2012, and he got bored, and he loved drinking wine, and so he set up a wine import company in Zimbabwe, where I'm from. And yeah, so I helped him start the company, sort of pick out the brands, tasting a lot of wine. And then when I then moved here in 2015, he was like, oh, you should do wine. I was like, no, I don't want to do wine. But I met you. And yeah, he was the first person, he introduced me to you first,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
You were the first person I met in the wine industry. And so, yeah, I think it just was a match made in heaven, yeah. So from that, learning about wine, drinking wine, educating myself, which I think was very, very important for me to be able to talk about wine, to sell wine, and then to be able to try and educate people as well. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey over the last, I think we started this towards the end of 2016, so it's been about a 6 years labor of love, Sometimes you question yourself why we do these things, but at the end of the day, I think there's a real passion for what we do, and I think especially because Africa was still such a young market, right? I think in terms of everything, if you think about Africa, like Europe, South America, everywhere, even South Africa's not really African, I'm joking. But they've sort of all progressed, technology, infrastructure, the food space, the wine space, all of those things, they've really, we've still got a lot to catch up on. So there's so much opportunity in Africa, right, for wine to grow the industry, but also to create amazing winemakers, amazing sommeliers, and all of that. So it's really, really encouraging to be a part of that space, and also then to see that so many people now are interested in the market, right? Like looking for distributorship and all of that. And but for us, it's very important that it's like, you guys used to think Africa, we can sell anything there, just send them $1 wine, it'll be fine, But our markets, our people are so exposed, We've lived outside of Africa, we've lived at home, we've learned so much, so we're exposed. We also like nice things, right? There's not enough anymore just someone to be like, here's a wine, drink it. Or, just because it's French or it's the best South African. It's not about that. It's about selling quality and brands with a story and stuff that resonates with whatever market you're working with on the continent. So we work across the continent. I head up East Africa. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
The Zimbabweans are taking over everything, right? But we'll come to that about some brands. But yes, there I was at Cape Wine, I think 2015, and there's this very fashionable gentleman who always wears hats. And you could spot him because clearly how many black people were we in the room?
Yeah.
And yes, I really do appreciate the introduction to you. But when I met you, you were like, I just moved here, I want to be a housewife, a lady who lunches. The transformation, really, you are quite the reluctant wine person, right?
Yeah, I mean, it just, my background is marketing, advertising, PR, comms, and, same thing with my father. Before he, all these challenges that we were having in Zim, he was the managing director for one of the biggest advertising companies in Zimbabwe. So, a lot of everything that he's done, I've kind of followed in his footsteps. Nice. So, that was what I wanted. And when we moved to Kenya from Zimbabwe, I was like, I want a jobby job. I want to work for a company, and I want to be like marketing like guru and all of that. And, God was like, nope. this is not your portion. And
Yeah.
so it was very difficult for me to accept that this is the road I'm supposed to be on, because it's not something I wanted. But, you know, it was coming from so many angles. You know, my father, you know, then he who introduced me to Alistair? Was it you or I can't remember. I think it was him. Again,
It was him as well, yeah.
Keeps introducing. He's like, yes, my daughter needs a job. I'm like, yo. Why are you making me seem like I'm, you know, just there sitting doing nothing, you know? Because I was catching feelings like I could do this for myself. But he introduced me to you, to Alistair, and then my husband as well. He was very much like, this is what you need to do. This is the path. And I was like, I don't want to. I want to be a marketing director. That's my dream. But the good thing is I've been able to use a lot of that experience in all that we do, right? I just switched sort of industries, but all those skills, all those things I've learned, been able to apply them in our day-to-day, right? Because selling wine is marketing, really, and gift of the gab, right? Just tell the thing, people like small things, and be like, yes, I love it, right? Wine could be quite, you know, but they love everything else about it. Yeah.
The storytelling is really, really important.
Very,
and I
very
think
important.
you've entrenched yourself as a storyteller in this market from
Yeah.
all the events you do, and I think even the training that you perform. But you had a different kind of beverage you were working with before.
What was my beverage?
Coca-Cola.
Yes.
All right, the Coca-Cola group. There's lots of non-alcoholic beverages in that group. And there was glam, glitz, the kind of marketing career you're talking about that you wanted to get back to. Tell us a bit about that part of your life.
So I went to university in the US, and I lived in the US for 9 years. And so I did my undergrad, got a BA with a minor in economics, which I've never used in my life. And then I went and did my MBA in marketing, and then I started interning at a experiential marketing firm in Atlanta. And they did a lot of big activations with big brands, Coca-Cola, Visa, like FIFA, ESPN, all of that. So I'll never forget the day. It was before, I think it was like 2009, beginning of 2009, because the next World Cup was in 2010.
Yes.
And I was still an intern, and I was still, no, when was the World Cup?
2010
So this
in
was
South
like
Africa.
2008, like middle of 2008. And so they're like, oh, you know, we're doing our FIFA World Cup draw in association with FIFA and Coca-Cola. Oh, we need an intern to come and take minutes. I was like, yeah, me. Which was actually not me, because I'm very much an introvert, an introverted extrovert, if that makes sense. You know, I'm actually very shy. Nobody believes me, but if you give me some liquid courage. But, you know, I just felt this thing like, you know, in my mind, I was like, I want to be on this tour. I want to do this thing,
Wow.
right? And so I sat in the meeting, you know, took the minutes, whatever, all of that. And so all of a sudden, the VP then kind of took me under his wing. I think he could see all of these things, and he was just like, you know, you're the type of person we need. And so, yeah, when I graduated, I got hired by the company, and we were going to do the FIFA World Cup trophy tour.
Wow.
So there was an Africa tour. So they went to, how many countries in Africa? 54.
50, yeah, there are 54, I think, yeah, with you at
So we went to like 52. There was 2 for, you know, safety reasons that they were not able to go to. So they did an Africa tour. So in every market, we would travel with the World Cup.
Yes.
And so we do activations in the market. So basically, just, you know, because soccer, football, it's about celebration and bringing people together. So, you know, just because it was going to be in Africa, everything, there was so much excitement for all of us. So, you know, they went to every single country. They even came to Kenya. 3 days, usually in market, 2 to 3 days, do like sort of like a PR event, and then you do like a full day activation with games and all of these things. You come, you can take a picture with the trophy. So that was the Africa leg, and then we then did a global tour. So we went the rest of Africa. So I was part of the global tour. So we traveled over about 3 months to about 35 countries, Europe, Asia, South America. And the funny thing was, I was usually the only black person. Right? Like, I was always in these places, and then they'll be like, "Are you Nigerian?" I'm like, "No, I'm like Zimbabwe." Where is Zimbabwe? Well, Zimbabwe. Are you Zimunda? So then now they would start thinking, what was that Eddie Murphy?
Coming to America.
Yeah. So yeah, it was such an amazing experience for me. You know, it was. And meeting people, and I think that was a good thing. I had to take myself out of my shell, right? Working with people from all over the world, going into these markets, setting up crazy activations and not sleeping. We had our own jet, so you just get on, you feel like a VIP. You travel with like soccer stars and the musicians. You feel like you're something else. So, after that, I'd lived in the US for 9 years, but after I was done with that, I never thought I would leave America. Like, because people leave America be like, where are you going? Like, what is out there? So after that, like seeing the world, like it really felt like I needed to come home to Africa. Like, I don't know what the calling was. And everyone was like, stay, you can do this. And I'm like, yeah, but I just feel like I've been here for too long. And I was tired of living in America. Like, it just felt like I've had enough, right? And so I'm actually glad I left because, but the whole point was, it was such an amazing experience for me, and I wanted to come back home to Africa. And it didn't matter where, really. I just wanted to be in Africa. And I don't regret it. I moved back, met my husband, lived in South Africa, lived in Zimbabwe, and now here I am. So,
Kenyan 7 years later, true
Nairobian. And this was the last place I'd ever have thought I would live. Like, the first time I came to Kenya was in 2015. Yeah, just before we moved. And so I'd never been like past like Zambia. Like, Southern Africans, we just stayed below. So, it was a completely different experience. And meeting people, understanding the culture, like people, I'm still don't get it. Why Kenya? Really? The roundabouts, no, I'm joking. But it was an amazing thing, and I think I feel so much at home here. I feel like we're very similar in terms of who we are as people. Mm-hmm. So I'm very happy to be here. I'm happy to call it home. My children were born here, and I just, it's a good place to be here.
Okay, no, great. I mean, that kind of experience. I know there's the World Cup this year. I think it's the first time it's being held in December.
Yeah.
And the cup will be coming again, so you better go and visit it. Go say hi. Remember
guys.
me?
Yeah.
But then, I mean, what a journey, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, you had come and you really didn't want to get back into this business, but beverages are for you. Liquid courage is the stronger kind. And yes, I remember when we met, and then we didn't go for Cape Point together because the Cape Point had happened already. But then we had this tour of Cape Town, and there was a towel gate scandal somewhere else. But then before then, you got into Under the Influence.
Yeah.
And I also remember how it was different to be two Africans in South Africa again, but having lived there, both of us, right, and had our different experiences, and now we were being looked at the next best thing because we were coming in as quote-unquote investors or opportunity seekers to bring wine into Africa.
No.
Very, very interesting experience going through the winelands. Wow. You are definitely Kenyan 7 years later with your children being born here, and I mean you and your husband living here, and of course we are all the better for it. So tell us a bit now about Under the Influence, the organization. There were some operations they had there in Kenya and in the region before you joined them. And of course, now you have expanded that to a whole new level.
Yeah, so we are a distributor of wines and spirits. Our head office is in Cape Town, and then we have an office here in Kenya, like an actual hub, and then one in Zambia. And then around the continent, we've got what we call partners. So we work with them. So everything that we do, they do. We support them with the brand training, with stock, with all of that, because it's quite an undertaking to be able to open like a physical location in every country. And Africa is wild. It's not the same everywhere, right? And you can't replicate me across the continent. So we've got partners in Rwanda, Nigeria, Ghana, Seychelles, Malawi, Namibia. So the thing is, our CEO, Alistair, his background has very much been about education and training. So he used to work for this company called Lobster Inc. He was actually one of the founders. And so they used to do a lot of training, like, Lobster Inc. used to do training for everything. I think people still use Lobster Inc.
Yes, they do.
So, he used to go and do training for clients, and he would take all these, like, beautiful wines, right? Because a lot of what I was saying, Africa, we just knew certain brands, right? But he was now taking all these brands, and people are like, wow, how can we get these? How can we import these? And I think that's where that love, to do that. And then the thing for him was like, I'm going to go where everyone is afraid to go, right? Because, usually we don't move after Southern Africa, right? Like now going West Africa, East Africa, like everyone's like, oh, what happens there? And people will be like, you want to take my wine to where? Like, what happens there? But I think for him, it was just that love of spreading better beverages, about education. It's about training and creating all these amazing experiences for your guests, for all of that. So that's what we've been doing. Well, he's been doing, and we've joined for the past about 13 years or so. Yeah, so we've grown from a very small company to, well, not big, but we've grown a little bit. But yeah, and our passion is about people and drinks, but creating experiences about your beverages, because a lot of who we work with is a lot of lodge groups out in the bush, and so for them we always say, look, you got all these people coming to Africa, we want them to get the best experience of Africa, you're going to do everything African, so we're like, let them drink the best of Africa, and that is South Africa. South African wine is very, very highly rated around the world, and I think now because people have, obviously apartheid ended and whatever, so now, the wine is more accessible. All of these, beautiful wineries, all these boutique wineries are now exporting all their wines to the world. So to be able to recreate that sort of like Cape Town experience and like the Mara or like Cape is so important. And it's about storytelling. It's about storytelling about the brands that are very uniquely, African, because, they're made in Africa. The soil is African. Like, the people from South Africa are African. So it's been amazing to just be able to do that and to educate your staff. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I think we feel the same way, that, you go into a property and they know everything about whiskey and beer and everything. You ask them about wine and it's like blank stare, you know. And we want to change that narrative. We want to give people confidence. We want them to be able to sell, Africa in the drinks that they drink. We always say the things that people remember the most about being on holiday is like, the things they ate, the people they met, and whatever they drank, right? And it's usually your butler or your waiter, the one who's with you for 3, 4, 5 nights or whatever, who becomes like your best friend, your closest friend. You ask them about everything. What should I do? What should we do today? What are our activities? What should I eat? What's the best thing to eat? They become like your personal advisors, right? And so we want people to empower them and be able to create like a full experience with whatever wines or whatever gins or everything that you have. But it takes a long time, and it takes a lot of dedication as well from the individual properties to buy into this, because it's a big undertaking, and to actually put faith in people, right? Because if you're like in the middle of the bush, right, and people are coming from the local villages, that's who you're hiring, right? Yeah. Exposure, they don't have that. Maybe none of them have ever maybe been to Nairobi, right? Like, let alone gone for a wine course or even gone to like hospitality school. So important that you invest in your people. So I think Kenya still has a long way to go in terms of service, right? If you go to like Cape Town or even Johannesburg, right, food culture, restaurants, new things, like just breaking the barrier around food, right? Like, and we're trying, like, there's a lot of new restaurants and all of that, but we have to move away from warus, samosa, do you know what I mean? Like, when you say, I want to have a snack, like a samosa, it's not, do you know what I mean? Like bitings, we're trying to, there's so much work and there's so much more potential, and you see that every time, every year, every couple of months, a new restaurant is opening, and, they're pushing their boundaries. But service culture, educating your waiters, still got a long way to go, and it requires owners to really invest in people, which I think that we still fail at. Some people get it, but a lot of people don't, right? There was a restaurant I went to, very fancy restaurant, and it was for my mother-in-law's birthday. And then I called before and I'm like, can I bring a bottle of bubbles, because we want to, toast her. She was visiting, so they're like, yeah, great, so the person, sort of like the salesperson, was like, yeah, cool, no problem, or get there. Got our bubbles, and then they're like, so I'm like, okay, yeah, so we spoke to XYZ earlier, she agreed we could bring our own bubbles, just want to confirm how much corkage is. And then she was like, what is coquage?
You.
So I was like, what do you mean? And then she was like, I don't know what that is. So then I'm like, okay. It's like, if you bring something, you pay. And she's like, I need to find the manager. So I'm like, but anyway, if you were the salesperson, you would have then told the guys, by the way, we've got this party coming. Please make sure I've told them coquage, this is whatever. It took like 30 minutes to find somebody to come and confirm coquage, right? Or the amount, right? It was a little bit ridiculous because it was like, guys, you're supposed to be this high-end, whatever you are, right? Everyone wants to come here. You have to pay a deposit to even get there, whatever, right? But the whole point was like, you cannot sell me beauty, and I just lift the curtain, and it's not enough. Like service, people need to focus on service, and I strongly believe that, right? Some people get it, others don't, but you need to invest in that because that food culture, the restaurant culture is not going to go above where it is if people are not investing in people, and it's not enough, and people don't, and you see that every day, everywhere you go. Like people, my husband does this thing. He'll be like, every time he gets bad service, he'll be like, your tip is going down. All of a sudden, the guy, because now he's like, oh, damn. Like, but if I give you, like, gratuity, it's because you deserve it, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And so I'm not going to tip you if you're not doing, all of a sudden they change, they're like this, whatever, right? And I'm like, why aren't you like this from the beginning? I'm not saying everywhere else in the world, everyone is perfect, but the level of service, so that's something I really, really feel like the market is lacking in, and it just requires people to invest, to do education, to do the WSET courses, to come for WOSA, to do all of these things, right? Like invest in your people. And because we can't all leave and go over the world and do all of this, but there's the world is digital. There's so much that you can learn online, right? We have to do this, the industry has to do better. They really, really do. Yeah.
It's true, the investment being made in infrastructure versus the people is scarring.
Yeah.
And what is really crazy is by the time I was going to South Africa before, I would complain that, hey, Kenya, we know service. I mean, we were known for service for all those years before. Now, I'm just like, myself when I go. And especially now, for example, the Zimbabwean influence, even in service culture in South Africa, you can tell it's either a Zimbabwean or a Malawian, unfortunately, when you're being served really well. But yes, our standards really need to go up. But your organization has played a big part in that, with the Wines of South Africa partnership, where you, of course, have trained people in wine. And I can name all the top sort of sommelier people, having been through people who've been that for over 7 years we've been doing that. And we continue to do that because, it's important. I'm glad WSET, Wines and Spirits Education Trust, is something that now people are dropping, and even people hiring are saying, I want a WSET person. But I know
you have to work hard.
I had to work hard, and also I had to try and get you to go on the course with me, which you refused, but at least you got your level 3, which you passed very well. I still need you to come to class to help the people, right? But then the fact that, in a sense, as much as, yes, there's this really great, gap in service, people understand I need to do more.
Exactly.
And the ones who get it, and are able to now, upskill themselves along the way.
Yeah, because if you're in like South Africa, right? How many people go through literally everybody.
Everybody does.
It's not even. It's like it's a basic thing, right? Because the thing is, then it gives you basic knowledge about wine and wines of the world, right? So even though I'm an importer of South African wine, it's not enough for me just to know South Africa and nothing else, right? And I think that was a big part of the WSET, was like, I need to know. Like, I can't just be great at drinking, because all I knew was the nice stuff. That's all I can tell you anything about the nice stuff. But, the education, the understanding, it was very, very important, right? And you need people here to invest and do that more in their people, because it's just basic. Because once you know something, like, how much you open up, how much you can talk, how you can do so much more when you've got that tool, right? Because it's not enough. Wine is not enough to just try and BS your way through it, right? Because people can, especially people who drink wine, they can fish out very, very quickly. If you have basic knowledge, you can talk through a wine, you can talk about where it's from, the varietal, blah, blah. Like, that's fine. That's a lot of the time, that's all you really need. You don't need like a top class sommelier. But you start saying, so crispy, the freshness is out of the world, the talent on this white wine, people just throw out these wine bully terms. You don't want that. You want people to be able to talk confidently, and that took me time. So I can only imagine how long it will take other people, right? Who haven't had the same experiences or opportunities I've had, right? So I think that's a big thing that these guys, you know, you were talking about Calvin and also Sam about, you know, having a sommeliers association in Kenya, like an actual, you know, not just sommeliers, because there's so many of, I don't know how many times people said I'm a sommelier. I'm like, no, you're not. Do you know what a sommelier is?
Yes.
It's not just wine, it's wines, it's spirits, it's everything about
cigars, coffee, water.
Everything. It's not just, I can recommend a red wine or I'm a brand ambassador for whatever. It's not about that, you know. And I think that's something, you know, obviously COVID happened and, you know, there was a stall on that, but I think that's something that has to be a focus for us in the industry. And we are the people who will support, and we are the people who will build this industry, right? We will build sommeliers, right? So when sommeliers are in restaurants or hotels and lodges, they're the people who are going to represent our brands the best, right? They don't really believe in these brand ambassadors, because all they're doing is, grab, I'm drinking my gin, wonderful, blah, blah. That's not what you need, right? You need people who are in an industry, know what they're doing, and they know how to sell, right? Okay. That's what they need to be doing. Influencers are great. I'm not knocking influencers, but in terms of like brand ambassadors, your head waiter, that guy who just knows things is your best brand ambassador, right? Always. So us as an industry, it's a challenge for us, guys. We always talk about things.
Yes.
We should actually do it. We need to actually just go ahead and be like, we're supporting a sommeliers association because we've got a lot of support from South Africa. Like, they're ready to do it, but it's on us to be like, let's do it. Let's figure it out. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where it's like, if we come together, something happens. And, you know, was it last year or the year before when, you know, during COVID and all these, the government was trying to change regulations. It's the first time as importers we came together, because this was this thing that was so fundamental to how we do business, right? To be able to store our goods in bond, right? And we came together, all of us. It didn't matter where you imported from, but we all had the same challenge, and we came together. And we worked with KRA and all of that to make sure they understood our concerns and where we were coming from as an industry and how this thing would negatively affect us, right? And eventually, you know, that Gazette was rescinded, but that was because of a lot of hard work from us as importers coming together. So when we work together, we will do so well. And yes, we are competitors, but you know, we all face the same challenges and the same pains and all of that, you know. So when we work together, we do so well. It's so much better for our industry. Like, but because we have a lot of challenges, it's tough.
It's crazy. So maybe that's a good point to start on. So there is the ecosystem, right? So, or the value chain. And you're an importer and distributor, which is a big part of that. You've already spoken about, I guess, the sommelier side and the staff service and all that. What other opportunities are there, or what is this space like? If someone doesn't work in this industry coming in now, what would you tell them?
I mean, it's very difficult. Don't think that I can just come in, I want to sell some wine, I want to sell some gin or whatever. You know, there's so much back end, right? Because, you know, everybody thinks I have this best job. Like, they all think I just sit all day and drink wine and travel to these wonderful... That's all they think I do. You know, host tastings. I'm like, you know, I'm actually like an operations and logistics manager and an import control. Like, that's who I am, right? Yeah. I spend my day trying to forecast stock and holding levels and inventory, like, you know, and on the back end, the regulation of imports, right? So Africa, like, you know how they say TIA, then there's TIK. So imagine you've got, this is Africa plus this is Kenya, and you're trying to run a business, right? And we always have this joke where Africa wins again. Like, every month I'm like, Africa, you keep winning, right? And I think it's probably a continent-wide problem, though. You know, Africa is very hard to do business in. We make it so difficult. And, you know, there's a lot of things, you know, but I think, you know, trying to put everything online, digitizing a lot of systems would reduce a lot of backlog and unnecessary, you know, back and forth, right? If I give you this, your rule says this, I should be able to do this. It should not be, there's always a person intervening in everything, trying to whatever, right? And, you know, I think we're trying. I think the government is trying and all of that, you know, and I think there's a lot of issues with sort of counterfeit goods and corruption and all of that, you know, but you've seen all these things that the government, especially KRA, has done to try and stop that, you know, leakage. But still, it's still difficult, right? It's still difficult dealing. It's still difficult getting stickers. You know, things are changing, and you know, again, it's for us as importers to come, and we're the biggest stakeholder.
Yes.
We need to be talking with the government. We need to be showing them what our concerns are and how can we work together, because we've seen that. You know, everyone just thinks KRA is this big scary person, but if you go and sit and you talk with them,
yes,
it makes a complete difference, right?
And you were able to do that with this
Yeah,
Importers Association that you had created.
And they were all like, you know, we didn't understand, we didn't know you had all these problems, you know, and they were like, you guys need to come and talk to us and interact with us on a regular basis, not wait just when you have a problem, right?
Yes, okay.
But the thing is, most of the time, you only act when there's a problem,
A
right?
joint problem, yeah.
So, you know, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. It costs a lot of money to renew your licenses. You know, there's so many regulations about cabs, stickers, KRA stickers, warning labels, all of these things, right? But it's not insurmountable.
Okay.
Right? And if you've got the heart and you've got the spirit and you've got the people, you can do it, right? But yeah.
So what would you like to see more of? Either the importers doing or just the change in the general market? What is the opportunity there then?
I think just more collaboration, coming together more as an industry and tackling all the issues that we face together as like a Wines and Spirits Association, like, you know, tackling things together, because we have a lot of problems. We all face the same issues, right? And a lot of it is if we just went and we talked about our concerns and we asked them, how this is what we need, right? This is what we're struggling with. You guys need to do better. So I really think there's more opportunity for that. But, you know, we're also busy, and I think that's the problem. And our biggest challenge now is operations, logistics, getting stock here, right? Because COVID has just messed up all the seaports, anything sort of sea freight. So, you know, we're struggling more and more with people having stockouts, right? Like, so when people say we don't have stock, I'm like, yeah, we're like everyone. And you know, when you meet a new client, they'll be like, yeah, can you guarantee we'll have stock?
Yes.
And I'm like, no. And if they tell you that they're going to always have, they're lying to you, because of all the challenges that we're all facing, right? Every single importer of anything in this country, if you're bringing anything by sea, we're all facing the same problems. You can't get on a ship, there are no bookings, maybe there's riots somewhere, something is flooding
in Durban.
Or, you know, the rates have gone up, so that increases, right? So yeah, we just TIK. We just
TIK.
We move.
Actually, it's funny because
we move.
One of the other importers said, I'm not a wine importer, I'm a banker.
Yeah.
I am managing cash flow because I have to pay for everything up front and then chase you who's paying me in 30 days and 60 days and whatever. So now you're bringing a different dimension of you're an operations and logistics person.
Oh yeah, and even you know, there's been this discussion about, you know, the Kenyan payment culture, right?
Yeah.
Which is very, very, very bad, right? You know, and obviously you've seen it with big retailers falling and all of that, right? But, you know, that thing where it was like, I think there was a report was like, on average, like, you know, people settle within like 150 days. That's your average credit cycle for people, right?
That's
so imagine
insane.
like you're a small business and you're waiting for 158 days, you know, but there's this late payment culture. Like nobody wants to pay on time. Your invoice is due, right? I have supplied you, pay me within your 30 days, your 60 days.
Yes.
You don't pay, right? They don't pay. They just don't want to pay. They delay. But you've got the goods, you've got whatever, right? So there's this push again to change this payment culture, whatever, because a lot of us suffer with that, right? So, you know, coming up with a credit bureau, you know, talking about those things and making sure I don't know how many of us have been burnt.
Everybody has been
by
burnt.
somebody.
Everybody has been burnt.
A new restaurant, a new shop, whatever, the new kid on the block. Everyone wants to get in there. And they're wonderful payers in the beginning. And then all of a sudden things change and then they just go with your money. And people will be like, I remember one person said to me, it was during COVID, they're like, you want to send your lawyer, bring them. It will cost you more money for you to send them. I'm not going to pay you. I'll pay you when I'm ready. And I was like, but you know, the cheek of that, right? And I understand during COVID, people were focused on their people and whatever, right?
Yes.
But the people that we then had conversations with, our clients, guys, figure out a payment plan. Let's see how we can make this work. That worked. But the people who were just quiet, but now COVID is over. What isn't? You need stock. We won't work with you. We're not going to put ourselves through that much
You've already
stress.
burnt yourself already.
Yeah, and people, and I think as an industry, people have become much, much tighter on credit and giving people terms because we've been burnt. We were so burnt during COVID, right?
Wow.
The only thing that got us through COVID is Kenyans like to drink. So we were able to make some.
The individual market then grew you.
Yeah, but it's tough.
But touching on that also, you were also like a newcomer.
Yeah.
I mean, your company has been there, what, 5 or 6 odd years, right? What was that like now coming? Because I know your presence has been felt in the market.
I mean,
as has, some of the new entrants. So what was that like coming in as the new kid on the block? And what do you think has brought your success?
It's all about people. It's all about relationships. Okay. So our majority of our market was large groups. And so across Africa, there's a couple of groups that we've worked with across, so we were able to leverage on those relationships to get here.
Yeah.
And then when that started, then it became a lot of word of mouth. You guys need to see these guys. They've got good wines from South Africa, all of that. They do the training and all of that value add. But, honestly, through everything, and there's been the relationships that we've built with people because, times we've had stockouts. We should still be working with them, but, be honest with people.
Okay.
Honesty goes a long way, and there's this thing where you're always trying to dodge, you don't tell you tell a half, even a quarter truth. Just be honest.
We don't have. We don't have.
This is the problem. Whatever, I can help you, but don't just say I don't have. Give someone an alternative or a solution, right?
That's where the education comes in or how you build your portfolio.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
will also come to in a minute.
If I run out of one thing, I can substitute you with this. In the interim, I know the quality, the price, all of that. Is better, but it's a tough thing, and the government thinks we have lots of money, but we pay a lot of taxes, right?
Yes.
But still, on the other side of it is making sure we can,
deliver. Super. Yes. So you have a mainly South African portfolio that's intentional. Yeah. So take us through how you decide on what to bring in this market, given what your target market is, away from the lodges, even the individual consumers.
So just to give a little bit of history, I think, about South Africa and wine. Obviously, apartheid happened and there were a lot of trade embargoes for South Africa. So, you had a lot of flooding in the market of just, sort of the bigger brands, people who had access, to export and all of that. So once apartheid ended, things opened up for South Africa, and you started seeing a lot more accessibility, to the country, number one, and then to the wines, right? And now people were actually able to start exporting outside of, South Africa, so it's very interesting in Africa that the UK is the biggest market for South African wine. Can you imagine, the UK? So that's very, very interesting. Yes. That our wines they're still not amazing here, right? Yeah. They're not so well accepted, right? And in some circles, you see people say things like, "Oh, I don't drink South African wine. There's too much sulfites," and I'm like, do you know that every country in the world put some sort of preservative in their wine? Do you know when they started making wine, they used to burn those big concrete heads, and they used to burn sulfur in it because sulfur was a preservative. So all those Europeans, were the original people of sulfur. So there is sulfur in every wine, right? There is some sort of preservative. So you can't come to me and say South Africa has high sulfites. No, maybe you drank a really cheap wine, or maybe you're just not reacting great to a certain wine, right? Mm-hmm. Because the whole process of making wine is all like a chemical reaction, right? So you might react more to something more than others, right? So I know there's certain wines I find very difficult to drink sometimes, it will stir up my allergies or whatever, right? But I know it's a chemical reaction. It's not because the wine is necessarily, bad. But I'm very allergic to cheap wine like that. that one, no, I can't. But anyway, the whole point was, during a lot of the time, Africa was just flooded with cheap cheap wine. This is why anywhere in Africa, you're going to find certain brands. No matter where you go, you will see it wherever, right? And so, I think in the past 10 years, there's just been a push to get people to drink better, right? And not even just South African wine, even European wine, because we've been flooded with cheap wine from Europe, cheap wine from South America, But we know these wine regions are amazing. We know South America's got some beautiful wine. But we've just been flooded with, just supermarket value, whatever. But the thing has now become on importers' and probably more of the smaller boutique niche ones, really looking for brands with the story and good value for money as well, right? Because there's this perception here, the more expensive, the better. That is absolute nonsense, right? Drink what you like and what you enjoy. You could have the best wine. Like, let's look at the Seydi, like the Palladius or the Columella, or even this Molyneux, like this Granite. Like, these are like exceptional wines in South Africa, like exceptional. I think like the Columella has been voted whatever, like amazing, right? But if you're an introductory wine drinker, if I give you that, you'll be like, give me my gin and tonic or my whiskey. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, it's all about accessibility. It's all about your palate, and it's all about that, right? That's how you should sell people to wine. And this is what your portfolio should be about. Don't just focus on this high-end market, because that's not where it is, right? It's very easy drinking, accessible, right? So even if you have people at your house, right? Like, you remember our wine groups, right?
Yes, the wine groups that
we would drink expensive wine, but we'd be like, yeah, this is the one when those people who don't know anything, you just give them this, But you can't. I wish I could drink expensive wine
every day.
I can't. I drink things that are accessible and all of that. So this is the thing that you then have to do. So I think a lot of our brands, we've got what we call sort of our premium entry level, which are just very easy drinking brands. And we work with a lot of farms that sort of have like a range of products, right? Yeah. So like Protea, like Anthony Rupert, like Bossman, like, SA, which has got does SA, Stock Conde, Man, Bossman, Kent Forrester, all of these different, Iona even has all of these, so you have your premium entry level, and you sort of have your signature, which is sort of your mid-range, and then you sort of have signature, and then we have like our premium, which is
like iconic,
yeah. And not everything's iconic again, right? Because people base iconic on price, right? Like, for example, Thelema Cab is an iconic South African wine, but it's not that expensive, right?
Okay.
But it's such a it's such like from Stellenbosch, like a Stellenbosch Cab, like everyone knows Thelema, right? Like if anyone sees Thelema Cab, they're like, oh, and that's not even their premium wine, but it's that one's there where it's a South African like icon, right? And so it's about just figuring out and giving things in different price points. And for us, it's very important to have brands with the story,
Okay.
And I think our focus more past couple of years, and I think that's more been me, is supporting brands that have a story, but brands of color, right? Where you have a black person behind it, right? So talking about brands, representation, so obviously like Mosi with Joseph Tafana, his story is amazing. Starting off as a refugee, becoming like South Africa's top sommelier, him and Tinashe with the Kumusha wines being, on a documentary that's showing all over the world. For me, it's about supporting my people, right? And it's so important. And I think, I don't know if it's just because of everything that's happened in the world, but I've just become more unapologetically black, right? And some people would just be like, ooh, how can you say that? I'm like, no, this is who I am, and I'm an African, and I want to promote my people, right? I think as much effort we put into other brands, which is not a bad thing, it's the same thing to support our brothers and sisters, right? So even like the Her range from Bossman, completely female brand, so women of color who were completely disenfranchised, right? So this was just not black women, but it was also Indian women, like colored women, so everything about Her is all about women, everything about the brand, and the wines are amazing, right? So for me as a black woman in this industry, it's so important to support women, and then black people, right? So even Miko, right? When we talk about Mont Rochelle, right? Owned by Richard Branson, but the story behind who Miko Waritera was, right? The godfather of talcoms, and Mont Rochelle has named their restaurant and their 2 flagship wines after him, right? Because he was such an amazing, force. So it's very much about representation. It's also about sustainability, like even the Painted Wolf and the conservation efforts, even the Protea, all of their bottles, reduce, reuse, recycle. So it's more than just selling a wine. It's about looking at who they are and what they do, or working with iconic South African, brands like Seydi or Molyneux, like very much about old vines and terroir, and very much about the soil and the people and the quality of wine. So it's about all of that. It's about having a good portfolio, having a good price point, and all of that, and giving people diversity. So we're always looking for cool brands. We're going to be importing some French wines as well,
Okay.
a new range, some beautiful wines coming out of France, and not just the commercial stuff, right? Like all these small boutique wineries. And one person, I remember I was in a camp. They were like, all these French big names that you have. You're like, do you know, day to day, people don't drink these things. Do you know we do? We go these little villages, these little communes, these little whatever. That's where a lot of what we drink is. So when we come here and we see all these fancy, it's not the stuff we drink, so we're not excited. But if you take away from that, where it's like it has to be the thing that everyone knows, it doesn't. It has to be about the quality and it has to be about the people. So wine is something that we're really passionate about. But then we've also been doing gin.
Gin is becoming.
Yeah, gin went this and then it kind of plateaued.
Okay.
But it's a great African story. Go to the bush, gin and tonic, right? And I remember one of our clients was like, "Oh, we want to start a gin bar in the bush." We're like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, we'll do it." No, very difficult, but we did it. But yeah, so I mean,
That was in one of the lodges?
Yeah,
Like
so-
a purely gin bar?
Yeah,
Not
so
serving
it's-
nothing else but gin?
Yeah. So they have a proper gin bar. So we started that. We started importing gin, and Elephant Gin and Musgrave was one of the first gins that we imported into Kenya, right? And Elephant Gin and Musgrave. And Musgrave, beautiful story. Women-led, women-owned.
Wow.
Simone Musgrave. Elephant Gin has got the beautiful conservation story. Even though it's made in Germany, proceeds go towards elephant conversation, like David Sheldrick, and each bottle's got the name of a different tusker and all of that. But we know,
okay.
but even if you look at the little beads and the whatever, all of that is made in Kenya. But sustainability, we love it. We love Amari. Amari is also. Jess, the distiller, she's Kenyan, right? So, she's got two brands, Atlantic and an Indian is sort of a nod to her East African roots. We've got 6 Dogs, which has become such an amazing brand for us. And then, obviously Procera, which we've recently
Made in Kenya.
Made in Kenya. We're now the official distributor for
great.
Procera in Kenya. A lot of challenges, again, TIK, to be able to basically import it into here to be able to sell it,
Okay, because it was only available abroad before.
Yeah,
I think
so-
Harrods or...
So
in those
they what you call
fancy-
an EPZ. So you're in Kenya, but you're not in Kenya. So most of the stuff that you do is
Okay.
for export, right?
So you still import it now?
Yeah, but we imported from Samia. But anyway, the whole point was, it took some time to figure. And again, what I was saying, consultation, work with the government. Don't always just say
Lovely.
because this is difficult, it's not going to work. It's very much about talking with your stakeholders. How do we do this? How do we make it work? Which we've been able to do, right? So now we're the official distributor.
Super.
Wonderful, the most beautiful, African, African gin, using the African juniper that they get up in Kijabe, all of these beautiful things, but such a beautiful story and a local story, the Kitengela glass, everything about this is made locally. So gin has been great for us. And then, always have to have a complement of a premium tonic. So Buck and Quinn, which is a truly African tonic. So we've got our marula and our elephant gin always works together because
nice.
elephants like to eat marulas. So
And they stagger. They stagger after it.
see, they hate the jokes. Yeah, so there's always a compliment to each. Even the Indian, but it's all about just and trends are always changing.
Yes.
Over the years, some things have been amazing for us. They've peaked, we've taken them off. It's consistent, but keeping your ear
On the ground.
on the trends, and just making sure you're satisfying your customers and just meeting their needs, which is very difficult. It's a very big thing to do operationally, but we try. We still have ways to go. There's ways we could improve ourselves, but it's all a learning curve.
So you've decided not to do whiskeys at all?
No, it's not our-
So wine and gin is your thing?
Wine and gin, those things we could do, yeah.
Sure. Talking about customers, I'm a very satisfied customer. Thank you for what you've been able to do. And give us variety at really, really good prices. This is clearly only the beginning. I'm seeing we need a season for you, not just this episode of the show, but as always, great insights. And thank you for being so giving, even in the information and insights you provide in the industry. We cannot finish without asking you what is your favorite wine. And even though this Mosi is open, I'm sure maybe there's something that really moves you.
So, my palate has evolved over time,
Okay.
right? I think people would be in shock and horror to learn I used to drink sweet wine. That I never drank red wine. I only drank sweet white wine. But if you think about the first alcoholic drink you ever had, it
Yeah.
was probably something sweet. It was
Not for me.
mine was vodka and something. It was something sweet, right?
Okay.
And over time, my palate has developed. I moved away from the terrible things and I've become more refined in my life. But I used to be a big red wine drinker. Then I became a big white wine drinker. But I don't know if it's just age. I just think the older I get, my body's just like, yo, slow down,
Yes.
So very much now I drink a lot of rosé. I love
Really?
rosé. Yeah. Lighter style of alcohol, not as much acidity. I struggle with white wine a lot. I can drink like a Shannon most of the time, but it has to be with food. But I'm not just going to open a bottle of wine, even like when it's boiling hot. I actually would rather drink a beer. That lighter style reds, completely Pinot Noirs, Grenaches, Cinsaults, like very, very light style reds. I'm only drinking this because I love this wine.
Left to Nash.
Yeah, no, just might suffer later this evening, but it's all for a good cause. But let me tell you, I'm a bubbles girl. I just drink bubbles all day, every day. I love bubbles. And for me, I love MCC.
Yes.
Because it's like champagne on a budget, right? But on a very good budget, right? MCC is made the same as champagne, the bottle fermentation method. So if I can drink bubbles all day, I would be so happy. So depending on how I'm feeling, Lomarins is like my go-to.
Okay.
And if I'm feeling very, very fancy, some Lelude is like, my absolute, that's my absolute favorite. But my husband doesn't like that one. He doesn't like the price. But it's worth it when you drink it. But I'll drink bubbles all day. All day. All day I'll drink bubbles. But
I'll be proud to say the current winemaker at Lelude, Francois, was my classmate in my wine management course at UCT.
Wow.
And he's actually the person who took me into the winery and into like a cellar and was giving me barrel tastings.
Yeah.
Francois, I keep shouting out to you because I did not know what great experience that was because I was so green. But he really spent time with me. I think at the time he was at Asara.
Yeah.
So we'll toast to him even though we're not tasting with Lelude.
And the thing about MCC is also that, Franschhoek, right?
Yes.
Is like our Champagne region in Africa, basically, right? If you just drive through Franschhoek and all of these beautiful, beautiful farms who make the most amazing, MCC, right? So every time I'm in South Africa, I'm just like, I just drink so much bubbles because there's just so much of it.
There's so much of it.
And it's all accessible, yeah. But it's just, yeah. I mean, I love Africa. I'm so African. Even if people don't, I'm a lover of things. And I love bubbles. And I love wine. And I love life. And I think wine just, elevates. It elevates life. It's about people you meet, we're not just friends because of wine, but a big part of our friendship has been around drinks. Like everything we've talked about, everything has always been over a glass of wine. Sometimes coffee, but it's that thing that brings people together, and it's not about drinking irresponsibly.
Yes.
Like I can't drink like how I used to drink in my 20s, right? Because I just wake up feeling like death. But it's about the memories you create around what you drink.
Here's to you.
Here's to you.
And to more success ahead.
Yeah.
All the best, and thank you so much for your time. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers again.
Cheers again.
Thanks.
There you have it. What a journey. What a sip. Thank you so much, Diane, for your time. Here are the conversations that we have with WINENJIRU on a regular basis. See you next time.